Hello, Zero Gravitas here, and in this episode we'll be looking at this efficient little harvester that very quickly bricks up resources for use in our other crafting systems. So, welcome back if you already watched the previous episode where we showed how to build and use this mobile compact crafting base. As you can see, we're anchored up on this mini desert plateau and we're looking at which blocks we're going to need to fabricate to be able to load back in some of our previous techs. And of course that's just because it took up a lot of our blocks to spawn in this general systems vehicle. So we're going to need to fabricate a few more avalanche launchers and mobile furnaces, for example. But first I guess we should deal with this invading slab of GSO blocks. Or alternatively, it will just spontaneously explode. Well, I guess we don't ever have to worry about crafting 1 blocks again, but this mess is going to take quite a while to clean up, so we'd better set down an SCU. Yeah, we're not going to run out of those anytime soon, but maybe we can scrap them for wood and plumbia in a future episode. Okay, and that should be the last block that we needed to load in our quadcopter. It's definitely a good idea to have this to hand, just in case we need to buzz off and do some missions or sort out some troublesome enemies in the mountains or something like that. But the main tech I wanted to load in later in the episode still requires a whole lot of blocks to be crafted, and those venture blocks take a whole lot of wood. Certainly a lot more than we've got left, including in our inventory. As you can see, we're also running out of other harvestable resources, plumbia and titanite in particular. Now we could easily afford to buy a whole load of these resource blocks from the payload terminal that we crafted a few episodes back, but for the benefit of those who don't have any money, or are earlier on in their campaign and don't have access to the payload terminals, or don't want to use them because they're doing some special challenge playthrough run, we're going to take a look at one of my earliest workshop techs, which is a compact little HavesterBricker, and when I say bricks, I mean the compressed resource blocks. And here it is on the workshop with a bunch of instructions on how to use it. I'll put a link in the video description for anyone who wants to go there directly. It's also linked in section 12 of my complete guide to crafting on Steam. Anyway, because it's intended as an early game build with only GSO level 3 blocks and GeoCorp level 1, we can already load it straight in. Aww, look at how dinky it is. As you can already see, it's got self-charging and built-in bubbles and all of that. But it's not really meant for combat, so it's only very lightly armed. And half the reason we've got the mortars on the front is to help with harvesting trees when we get jammed and the drills can't reach the trunks. Of course it should be fun to take out the pesky little GSO trash mobs too, but for the most part we're going to avoid direct combat and let our mobile base defend us. Oh, which reminds me, we'd better go add an AI cab to it so that it can actually do that. There we go. And set it to guard. And it's not actually firing. I guess it must be slightly too far away. Oh well, this guy isn't causing too much of a problem. Although it would be handy to know exactly how much power we've got left, so let's add our power and fuel gauges. I think maybe they didn't exist when I first posted this tech on the workshop. And we are pretty much out of power, so I guess we'd better anchor up and recharge. So, for the main bricking function, we have to set our fabricators to craft the refined resource blocks. Oh whoops, there goes our shields. I guess the 4 solar panels aren't quite enough to tank the damage. The mortars won't quite hit that enemy from here. Oh, there we go, thank goodness. Not too much damage. So thankfully what happened there was that our anchored furnace generator kicked in and started burning some of the wood that was headed towards the fabricator. We can disable the furnace by turning the filter to nothing or set it to any fuel type we like, but it can only grab resources heading to the fabricator, so we have to have that set to craft the same type of resource block. And of course we'll generally want to set our pacemaker to turbo to make bricking 4 times faster. There we go, our first block. And the built-in SCU should pick that straight up. We'd only ever want to set our pacemaker to normal to make sure we get the full amount of power from each resource chunk. Just trying to manually insert a chunk here, but we're going to have to be anchored up for that anyway. There we go, so I guess that's another way of doing things. Right, now let's see if we can sort out this troublemaker. Come here, you little pest. Ooh, he's a bit of a flighty one. He's giving me the right run around. Let's see if we can give him a bit of a drilling. Oh, that's knocked his collector off. But yeah, you can see these mini mortars aren't really set up to aim at small enemies. Finally. I suppose we may as well collect the spoils while we are recharging. Of course, we can totally add some late game weapons here in place of the crummy low level ones we currently have. How about an avalanche launcher here? No, I think that sticks out at the side too much, it's going to get caught on stuff. Let's put them up top instead. Yeah, that makes more sense. And because these low-level GeoCorp drills can be a bit derpy too, we can totally swap these out for the far superior Cerberus head drills. If I remember correctly, these actually have the highest base damage of any weapon in game, which, along with their downward angling, should help us drill through rocks far quicker. And here we are anchored up a little bit later with the front fabricator set to brick wood. We can also set the back fabricator to brick a different resource. The front fabricator on repeat there because we've got so much wood to get through. And we've actually run out of titanite there before we finish the brick. But this isn't a problem because we can just unanchor and go and get some more, and it will keep the progress in the fabricator. There we go, some more titanite. Oh, and it looks like the AI module on our mobile base is finally doing some work. It must have spotted an enemy to... Yep, there one goes. Oh, and another one. Good work, base. Ah, and an opportunity to test out the new weapons on the harvester. Yep, that's definitely easier. Yeah, these drills are definitely top notch for taking out rocks quickly. But we are struggling a bit to get the right angle on some slopes. I wonder if adding a gyroscope would help with this. Again, that wasn't something that was even in the GSO inventory back when I first made this tech. And quickly use undo to reattach the bogey wheels in the middle. Oh, while we're looking at them, those grey GSO bumper wheels in the middle help give us a bit more speed, while the yellow GeoCorp Jaws wheels on the outside have got far more grip and torque up hills. I feel like the gyroscope is helping us keep the front wheels down better, but I think we're at a hopeless angle to drill this rock anyway, so let's give up on that. Ah, no! We're being terrorized by this really pathetic tech with like 2 guns! Run! So, we could probably have taken that guy on our own, but it was fun to demonstrate our base defense up close. Okay, so it looks like it's time to brick up our first full load of resources. Something that's important to note is that the fabricators can only pull directly from the silos. So we're starting by doing the plumbia, the grey stuff, and the wood at the other side. Then as the silos empty out, they'll automatically pull the titanite and other resources left in the collectors, which you can see here. TerraTech has an order of precedence when it comes to resources, and it will always take the lowest level resource first, starting with raw wood and then fibron. So the mid-level resources like titanite, or the higher ones, will tend to get left behind in the collectors on this design. And in other situations, high-level resources would be the last to be pulled out by filters, alternator conveyors, or delivery cannons. So let's see what resource our fabrication has stalled out on here. Ah, plumbia, we've got some of that. We can start restocking it. Excellent. And all the other resource types too. And lastly, the erudite, and there we go. Right, let's see what we still need to fabricate. That's a lot of quite expensive venture wheels. And the more expensive a block, the more components it tends to have, so the more resources you'll need to supply for it. Fabricating venture blocks guzzles a lot of fiberwood. For example, each of these large F1 wheels requires 10 fiberwood plates and also 10 rugged fibulas, and each rugged fibula requires 2 fiberwood plates. So that's like 30 fiberwood plates in total, plus some extra wood to make some of them into rugged fibulas. You can see that our stack of compressed wood blocks is already running down, and we've totally run out of plumbia again. So I think we're going to cheat a little bit and whip out the payload terminal. I think we'll just grab half a dozen or so of the low-level resource blocks. And this is just to make sure fabrication doesn't stall out again, while we're off harvesting some more. Man, this is so much easier, and it only cost us 50,000 block bucks. And back over to the harvester. And at this point I'm kind of just tidying up the odd loose bits that I missed the first time round for the satisfaction of a clean sweep. Now that's what I call environmental devastation. And let's go check on the base again quickly. Gosh darn, we've already run out of all the basic resources again. Welcome to Scrapper Refilling Simulator 2019. And we're pretty much full up again. This harvester will actually hold 680 resource chunks across its 4 large silos and 8 GeoCorp collectors. Just a little factoid there in case anyone was wondering. Am I detecting a potential video thumbnail here? Anyway, this tech certainly isn't perfect. The blocks spat out by the fabricator at the front do tend to get stuck on the solar panels. Oh, whoops, I've unanchored before picking up these blocks. I'll just stick them on the side for now. And there we go, we can throw them into inventory now. Whoops, I've done it again. Curse you, brain. And I guess we'd better go check on the base again for the 5th time. What's this? Out of wood? What a surprise. So, this little harvester is pretty agile. But some rocks just aren't meant to be harvested, I guess. And there's no worry if the silos drop a few resources, because the collectors will just pick them straight back up again. This craggy grassland sub-biome is certainly a great place to harvest a lot of rocks. Hang on, I've just noticed that we've been stuck on 65 of 200 rocks on this Master Harvester 2 mission for the whole episode. Dun dun dun! A bug in TerraTech? Shocking. Right, well we can probably cancel that mission then. And we're well into our 2nd night of harvesting now. And TerraTech days are 30 minutes long to give you some idea of how long that is. And I don't feel like we're going to win this fight, so let's make a tactical retreat to go fetch our mobile base. And well, you can certainly see where we've been already. These grasslands are looking more like the surface of the moon. And we've already seen plenty of messing around with the crafting stuff, so let's cut straight to moving. Now, this might not be the most dignified dismount. I did actually have to take the flower guards off entirely to get up there in the first place. But generally it's not a problem, there's not many places with such sharp transitions in slope. And just like with the harvester, the fabricators and component factories on the mobile base will keep their progress while they're unanchored. Oops, mini game hang, and camera spins out, there we go. Ugh, these annoying freezes happen every 60 seconds in campaign, because the game is auto-saving. Mostly I've just been cutting them out of the final footage. Right then, let's go and find a new lookout spot overlooking the rest of the harvestable resources. Yeah, this seems pretty good. Hi-ho, it's back to work we go. And we've not bothered recharging our harvester yet, so we could probably do with the base being turned to guard. Ah, what the heck was that? Random little resource explosion there. Never mind. Okay, we've been harvesting through the night and it looks like morning now. We're pretty much full of wood, so let's get anchored up, brick some of that and recharge this harvester. And we're just setting the filter there to grab some of those passing wood chunks for the generator. That'll do. Whoops, it looks like we took quite a lot of damage. And that'll do for resource bricking for now. Another glorious day of strip mining awaits. More harvesting. Come on guys, cut that out. No public displays of perfection, this is a family show. And more bricking. And more crafting. Then more harvesting. And more bricking. Wait, is this a better thumbnail? And 2 whole minutes later. Man, am I ever glad we've got 2 parallel fabrication lines on this little beastie. And a little more desert harvesting for good luck. Oh, go on then, let's see if we can finish off these awkward rocks before we call it a night. Making use of those boosters. Do you know what? I think we'll call it there after 2 full days of harvesting. We only need to craft a couple more blocks for our final tech now. So we can just finish bricking up what we're able to. And then just scoot the harvester around to the front of the base to decommission it. Of course we don't want to miss out on any of that loose change. Right, so let's just refresh that block list. Excellent, looks like we've got everything now. But before we load in our second tech, we're going to nip over to R&D mode to do a quick teardown of the first harvester. Okay, so no messing around here, we're going to just whip off all of the weapons, lighting, propulsion, wheels, power systems and additional blocks, so we're down to the bare bones crafting setup. And of course, if you're trying to reproduce this build on console or whatever, you can set the YouTube playback rate to 0.25 times so you get a better look at what's happening here. And here we go, the main crafting core. Now we're just going to remove the collectors and silos on one side to give a cross-sectional view of what's going on with the connectivity of the conveyor lines, and then scrap a couple blocks for some demonstration resources. There we see again the handy feature of silos pulling directly from collectors, and now we'll set one of the fabricators to make a plumbite block. And we can see how both front and rear conveyor lines will be connected to all 4 silos at a right angle. We could even have a third conveyor line down the middle. I didn't add one here because I felt the fabricator and refinery would stick out too far above or below for this compact build. At the end of the conveyor lines, you can see we've got the refinery and fabricator in an anti-jam configuration, as we explained in episode 2 of our crafting series. And just while we have this more uncluttered setup, I'll show again more clearly how we can set the filter to fuel the furnace generator. We can turn it off, set it to burn all fuel types, or select a specific fuel chunk from the whole list. Note that it always has to be the raw resource type because the filter pulls off the conveyor line before the refinery. And then the fabricator has to be set to craft something, of course. And there we go. Except that the generator's not accepting that wood chunk for some reason. Oh yeah, that little bug. We'll just have to unattach and reattach it. Lovely. And while we're in R&D mode, we're going to take a preview look at the final tech that we've been working so hard to load into campaign. And yes, it's a larger harvester. It's designed to be more of a mid to late game build, with double the silo capacity and much faster wheels. We also have both the fabricator lines terminating above the SCU at the rear, so hopefully we don't get resource blocks stuck around the front unforgotten. The shielding and repair bubbles are far more expansive, so there's a lot more battery capacity with 6 GeoCorp batteries inside. There's also 6 solar generators and a mobile furnace connected directly by a filter to each collector on either side. And if we very quickly magic away all the extraneous parts, we can see that the crafting core itself is very similar to the determinist build we made in episode 3 of this series, in that we have a single 2x2 collector on each side sandwiched between 4 silos. But instead of sharing a conveyor line and refinery, on the harvester each fabricator has a separate line and much bigger silos of course. Splitting the core open, we can see that the conveyor lines aren't quite as elegant as on the smaller harvester. There are high and low lines with vertical tributaries connecting to the silos, but it's the exact same idea of 2 parallel crafting systems. And on only the lower line, there's a filter system to pull out resources to be sold in a delivery cannon, but you could swap that out for a mobile furnace generator if you wanted to. But back to the complete build. Despite being much bigger and heavier, it's almost twice as fast as the smaller harvester. 80 miles per hour cruising and 100 miles per hour with boost, so it should also be good for roaming around and finding new areas to raid. And it's got some late game weapons in the dual autocannons, but I've steered away from any explosive weapons because they tend to blow resources away from the harvester, or sometimes destroy them completely. Before the solar panels have even deployed, we can see that the bubbles are powering up, thanks to the mobile furnace generators pulling wood directly from the collectors. These should give us a continual trickle charge while we're driving around, as long as we're harvesting some trees. Now we're just selling off some rubber as a demonstration, and the pacemaker is around the back at the top here. Now taking a quick look at the wheel setup, the monster truck wheels on the outside help us with turning and rough terrain, whilst on the central bogie in the middle we've got large F1 wheels and Springer wheels which have a much higher top speed. I guess you could drive it around like this, but it does look kind of silly and it'll probably topple sideways on steep slopes. Anyway, stripping off the outside to take a look at the drive core, this actually has included 2 pairs of GeoCorp hover pads to give the tech a hover bug boost when going up hills. They're not actually strong enough to make it fly though. You can barely even tell, but I'm pressing lift up here. Come on, fly! No, nothing. Well anyway, that's enough of the theory. Let's get back to campaign mode to load this in for real. And here we go! And by the way, I've named it CFS Harvester F1 because the CFS stands for Compressed Fabrication System, with the compressed resource blocks being put directly in scrappers and all that. And F1 because the F1 wheels underneath. Or you could maybe think of the F as fast because it's a speedy harvester. And let's kick straight off with a bit of a hill test. Oop, the Cerberus drill's caught a bit on the edge there, but it looks like it's going to have no trouble getting up to the tree. Whoops, it looks like that Luxite shard broke something in our undercarriage, and the tree even did some damage to our weapons on the top there. Maybe we should modify our drill layout to guard against that. We'll take a look after a little bit more practical testing. Yeah, I think maybe another Cerberus head drill in that top left corner. It would be better than our plasma cutter taking impact damage and should protect our dual autocannon too. Talking of which, let's give our weapons a little test on this tiny enemy. Yep, that seems good. Certainly the cluster missile launcher on the back did its job. A thought occurs. We should probably go over to that trade station and see if they've got that GeoCorp rock harvesting mission so we can be doing that at the same time. Yes, so in financial terms, it would probably make a lot more sense to be harvesting pillars biome rocks. The resources from each one of these rocks would sell for about 1,000 block bucks after refining. But even if we're bricking up all these resources, it might still be a viable alternative to a small auto mining operation. particularly if we're using a speedy harvester like this to zip between outcrops. But anyway, we were heading to this trade station. Oh, excellent, there's Master Harvester 2, we'll take that. And last episode we were struggling to find any GSO missions to level up our license, so these will come in handy too. Hang on a sec, these crystal outcrops don't count towards the rock harvesting mission anyway. Rubbish. On balance, I think we will actually leave the area this one time. This harvester's not exactly the most combat efficient tech, but we can still grab some more shiny crystals on our way out. Oh excellent, these regular rocks are counting towards the mission finally. I know I said we weren't using any explosive weapons on this tech, but one little rapid cannon couldn't hurt too much, could it? And they're very effective. And while we are adding weapons, I did say we were going to replace these angled plasma cutters with some more Cerberus head drills. That doesn't look as streamlined, but I think it'll be more effective. And while these crossfire rifles are very powerful, I think we'd still be better off with the smaller hailfire rifles, which are fully turreted and will have a lot more success hitting small enemies. And we've certainly got a few of those, so we can stick some on the back as well, why not? So, that invader doesn't look very big, but those are cruise missiles. Yeah, I think we'll not risk it. We'll come back later with the heavy firepower of the base. And there's the little guns doing their job. Oh, whoops, we've been missing one of our front springer wheels the whole time. That must be what we lost to the collision with the Luxite shard before our batteries were charged. Yeah, that's not going to fit. It must be one of the short springer wheels. Ach, never mind. Certainly we've got this far without it causing us much trouble. Ooh, watch out for the side lasers. I think that might have been the most scary random spawn we've had all episode. And as with a number of our previous other techs, the GSO SU on the back of this harvester tech is designed to be placed down quickly if you can't anchor, or maybe if you want to go and do a bit of harvesting while it sucks up the blocks. And then you should be able to slot it back in fairly easily. And this is looking like we're not able to pick up any more resource chunks. So I guess that means we must already have 800 on board, which took us about 15 minutes of harvesting, minus messing around with enemies and weapons and stuff. So I guess this is a good point to find a nice spot to anchor up, set our pacemaker to turbo, and crank out a whole load of resource blocks while the end credits roll. As always, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about this episode or TerraTech in general in the comment section below. Also feel free to leave your criticisms or praise, likes, shares, and ring that bell. Hopefully you should now be looking at the end screen links to the rest of the Crafting Playthrough series episodes. So by all means, go and check those out if you haven't already.